So I'm a little late on this, but I'm going to be doing the mid-year bookish freakout tag. It's basically a mid-year check-in to see how you're doing with your reading. So yeah, let's talk about what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me in reading this year. Best book you've read in 2020. There's been a lot of standout books. I, like, for example, was blown away by Mexican Gothic. I also loved Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. A book that I actually didn't rate that high, but I can't stop thinking about is The Third Hotel by Laura Vandenberg. And this is such a weird book. It had like this beauty and this eeriness, and I can't stop thinking about it. So yeah, those are my like three answers for that one. Mexican Gothic was this fast-paced Gothic story. And I think what I liked about it is that what usually doesn't work for me in Gothic stories is that it takes forever for anything to happen. And it usually relies too much on atmosphere and not enough on plot. And this was just like the perfect mix of plot. Like things got moving right away. There was characters that I was like immediately invested in. And as a story for me, it just worked. And I really liked the direction that the story went. I just really liked it. Night of the Mannequins was like a really fun kind of a slasher novella, and yet like it's a book I want to talk about all the time. Like if I see someone has read it, I just want to DM them and talk about it because I enjoyed it so much. And like I said, yeah, this little weird number. Best sequel of 2020. I haven't read that many sequels this year. I'm gonna have to go with The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the third book in the Truly Devious series, which is a series of books that takes place at this boarding school. It's this like really prestigious free boarding school, but like everyone that goes there is kind of a genius at something. And so Stevie is there because of her talent with criminology, and she's really into true crime. And so she wants to solve like this age-old mystery of the boarding school, and there was like a mysterious murder, like the founder's daughter and wife were kidnapped and never seen again. And Stevie's senior project is that she wants to solve this mystery. And so this is the third book in that series. And the thing with the series is like you kind of need to read them all in a row because they are essentially kind of one big story. I don't really think any of them stand well on their own. There's a lot of cliffhangers, so you kind of just like need to go to the next one. So I'm glad I started this series when all of these three books were out and I could just like read them all because that's exactly what I wanted to do. If you like mysteries and like a sleuth character that thinks outside the box and figures things out, that's a good series. So that is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. New release I haven't read yet but want to. Probably The Deep by Alma Katsu. This and The Hunger are both kind of historical fiction horror type stories, and The Deep takes place on the Titanic. And then I think we follow two survivors kind of on a different boat with something supernatural going on. So I've heard nothing but good things, and I need to read that. Most anticipated new release. So my most anticipated new release of 2020, I cannot wait to dive in, is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth. This was pitched as The Haunting of Hill House meets The Favorite. And it's kind of this story about this boarding school, and these girls start this club and they mysteriously die, and then there's kind of this whole like meta narrative going on. And like in present day, people are filming at the boarding school to do a story about the girls that died. Yeah, so it says The Favorite meets The Haunting of Hill House in this highly imaginative, original, highbrow horror comedy centered around a cursed New England boarding school for girls. A wickedly whimsical celebration of the art of storytelling, sapphic love, and the rebellious female spirit. And the highly anticipated adult debut from the award-winning author of The Miseducation of Cameron Post. Yes, please. To all of it. To everything. Biggest disappointments. This one was kind of hard. I mean, I don't love talking bad about books. But one that a lot of people enjoyed that I just don't get, that did not work for me, was The One by John Mars. And this had such a good concept. I feel like there was so much potential there. Like, what if there was a dating site that was done through DNA? So you could find your like perfect match. Like, what if through your DNA there was a dating site that could match you up with like your soulmate, like the person you are supposed to be with that like complements you perfectly. And so you're following these like different stories. I guessed all of the twists and I was like halfway through, and like the writing style didn't work for me. I was guessing everything that happened, and I just felt like it was a concept that could have been explored more. Like, I think I wanted it to like push the envelope a little more and go a little further with the concept and with like the repercussions of something like this. And I felt like it tried kind of exploring different like odd scenarios, but I don't know, it just did not work for me. It is getting made into a Netflix series, so I'll give it a shot then. Like, I'll watch it and see if maybe like the adaptation works better for me than the book did, but the book was a no-go for me. Unfortunately, I DNF'd it. Biggest surprise. So yeah, I did not see this coming, but Jessica Simpson wrote a memoir, open book, and I kind of loved it. I just think it was everything I would want out of a celebrity memoir. Like, and do I feel gross saying, like, I kind of want it to be a little dishy, and it was like the right amount of dishy, the right amount of like self-reflection, the right amount of, you know, kind of showing us what it's like behind the scenes, like in the Hollywood music pop star machine, especially in this case of like the late 90s aughts, like what that landscape looked like, her relationship with Nick Lachey, what it was like filming Newlyweds, you know, her relationship with John Mayer. And I felt like she didn't hold back with any of this. And I listened to the audiobook, which I always love to do with memoirs, especially when the author narrates it themselves. And yeah, I just think for a figure who was painted in the media all growing up like a certain way, to hear things now from her side and what was going on with her, and how, you know, sometimes she did kind of play into these stereotypes of what people said. It was very interesting to hear her side of things. So definitely recommend it if you are into celebrity memoirs at all. If you are my age and you were, you know, kind of around for the battle of like the blonde pop star and like the 2000s, you know, it was Britney versus Christina versus Jessica Simpson. So yeah, that one took me by surprise, like how much I ended up enjoying it. Favorite new author? Favorite new author, I might say Sadie Doyle. She wrote this book, Dead Blondes and Bad Mothers. I can never remember the subtitles of books. Monstrosity, Patriarchy, and the Fear of Female Power. So this is kind of a book of feminism and the way that women have kind of been depicted as monstrosities through horror films and through myths and folk tales, and kind of the different ways women are made to be the villain. As someone who was really interested in horror and feminism in horror, this was really interesting. It's separated into sections. So like the first section is daughters, and then wives, and then mothers. And what about them is like the horror that is portrayed, or the thing that presents a threat to a male character, or the patriarchy in these stories. So again, you know, not gonna work for everyone, but I saw that she's written other things, so this definitely made me want to check out more of her work. Newest fictional crush? I really couldn't think of anything, to be honest. Newest favorite character? Newest favorite character might be Quinn from Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare, that will be coming out soon. It's a slasher story, and reading it, I kind of got all these like nostalgic 90s teen slasher vibes. And Quinn has just moved to this small town in Missouri with her dad, and her dad really need this new start, and she kind of gets in with this group of friends. It doesn't know that she's kind of walking into this town where there's a lot of tension brewing, and just kind of by being there, she finds herself in the crosshairs of these issues between these groups of people that have been simmering for a long time and have now kind of reached their boiling point. So I liked her kind of as the protagonist of this slasher story. I also really liked Stevie from The Hand on the Wall. Is it maybe because her name is Stevie and she lives in Pittsburgh and she's really into like horror and true crime and she has anxiety? No, but it's also not the reason why. No, she was a really interesting character, and I've always loved like sleuth characters that are kind of like one step ahead of everyone else or think about things in a different way than everyone else and are able to like solve the mystery. So I really liked rooting for her throughout the series of the books. A book that made me cry was the nonfiction book, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. And so she is a therapist kind of writing about different clients that she's had, and we kind of follow these, check in with these clients at different points and follow their journey as kind of therapy helps them. And then we also get like her going through her own issues where she is going to see a therapist for a recent breakup that she's had. And then we are also following kind of her journey to become a therapist. But some of the stories of these clients that she had, I would read this at night in my bed and be like sniffling, holding back tears as these people like just told these really tragic stories or just had these moments of vulnerability. And I don't know, I cried like 4 times reading that book. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. So for book that made me happy and most beautiful book, I'm kind of gonna do the same thing. So I'm going with the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was put out by Quirk, and they always just do such pretty books. You see it has the like Mount Pleasant library stamp, and it's got this like really pretty paper. They just go the extra mile on their book design, and I have always appreciated that about Quirk. So yeah, this is a book that not only made me happy, but it's a beautiful book. And then a book I still have to read in 2020, The Living Dead, a new novel from Daniel Kraus and the late George Romero. This is like an epic zombie story. I need to read this. I talked about this in my reading vlog, but I kind of wasn't in the mood to read any pandemic-based literature or any plots that revolved around any type of global pandemic. So I was not in the right headspace for this novel. Now, nothing much has changed in that we are still very much in the middle of a global pandemic, but I think it's something I feel like I'm in a better headspace to read. So I definitely want to check this out. I'm a little worried that it is over 600 pages, but I think it'll go by fast. It seems like a very action-packed kind of plot. So we shall see about that. Anyway, those are my answers for the mid-year book freakout tag. What was the best book you have read this year? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!